Video we're going to show you how to set up your Pixelcade DMD. Pixelcade is a DMD for pinball with your PinUp popper installation. So in this install, assume you're running this from your actual PinUp popper machine. So fire up a browser, go to pixelcade.org, and the first thing we want to do is we want to download and install the Pixelcade DMD add-on. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to Pixelcade DMD installer, and then I'll just download this. Alright, so now it's downloaded. Let's go ahead and run the installer. Now this is really important. You need to make sure you install this in your vpin main folder. So I'm going to browse and just look for your visual pinball folder first, in which case it's here, and then here's my vpin main. So click that, hit select folder. Super important, it's not going to work if you don't do that, so make sure you install it in vpin main. Hit next, and then install. Okay, so now what we need to do is tell the software what COM port Pixelcade is on. So it's going to open up Device Manager here for you automatically. You can see it's going to show up as US serial device. If you have multiple US serial devices, like let's say you've got some send-in guns, then unplug them or unplug Pixelcade, and through process of elimination, figure out which COM port Pixelcade is on. In this case, it's easy. There's only one. So I know I'm on 6. So go in here, type in 6. Really important, don't type in COM6, just type in 6. As the instructions say, hit OK. And then this you want to answer this depending on what kind of Pixelcade you have. So if you've got the Pixelcade DMD, which is the smallest size, then you want to hit no. If you've got a larger Pixelcade, which is P3 or above, then you want to hit yes. In this case, I'm actually running a Pixelcade DMD, traditional DMD, so I'm going to hit no. And that's it. So at that point, we've done that. And then what I want to do next is I want to download the actual artwork. Now, eventually, I hope to make this more automated. It's just not there right now, so bear with me. We'll do this manually. But go to this website here. It's a GitHub repo, github.com/alinky/pixelcade. Hit OK. And this is going to pull up the Pixelcade artwork. So this is all the LED artwork for Pixelcade. Then just go over here, and then we're just going to do a download. So download zip. And that'll get you all of the Pixelcade artwork. So we'll let that download in the background. While that's downloading, let's go ahead and start to set up PinUp Popper. So go over here to PinUp menu. And the first thing we'll do is we'll go over here to Popper Setup, Global Config, and then Script, and then Modify Script System Options. I'm trying to go slow because I know that's a lot of steps. Okay, so first thing we need to do is this is on your startup script. You want to make sure use DMD equals true. For you, the default, it should actually be set up as false. We want to make this true, and this is if you're using a hardware DMD, which is what Pixelcade is. Set that to true. And then, very important, DMD mirror, you want to be false. So in our case, we're going to use the native artwork that comes with Pixelcade, which is pixel perfect, optimized pixel by pixel artwork that is in the form of pings and GIFs. So we don't want to do MP4 videos. You can do those, but you'll get a lot of artifacts. It just does not look that great. Trust me, this is the cleanest way. So make sure that's false, and go ahead and close that out, and then you can hit save. And we want to go to Popper Setup again, go to Emulators, and what we're going to do here is basically set up Pixelcade to auto switch when you're switching from different emulators, like let's say Visual Pinball, or you're switching from Future Pinball or FX2, FX3. So let's just start with, say, FX3. I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit Launch Setup, and then we need to add a line to this script. And again, eventually I hope to automate this and make this easier, but for now, you gotta do it manually, so bear with me. And so I've already done it, but you notice what I've done is I've added basically this line right here, these two lines, okay? And this is in the instructions, so you can cut and paste later. So I just changed directories to my vpin main, and then I'm launching this program right here. And what that does is, if you're familiar with DMD extensions by Freezy, which you can see this line up above here, it basically just does that for you automatically, just making it a little bit easier. So it's all these parameters, you don't need to worry about that. You just basically call that one exe and you're good to go. So that's what that does. So you want to go ahead and add that line, and you noticed I've added that line before this one right here. Probably the easiest way, but just add it at the beginning. I should test that actually. But so make that the first line. And then, so that's FX2. FX3 is very similar, just a different exe. So you see the exe is different there. Same thing for a future pinball. Let's see, this one, I think I have to scroll down a little bit. But again, if I were to do this again, I would add that line. Just make that the first line. I think that's the easiest. So here's future pinball. You can see this one is commented out. So if you see REM, that basically means comment. So comment just means that line is ignored. And then for visual pinball, actually we don't need to do anything for visual pinball. Visual pinball is uses a DLL, so we don't have to do any special exe. But what I do is for every one of these guys, actually not visual pinball, but for like FX3, I add a little line here at the end, this task kill command, which kills DMD exe. And that means when you launch it again for the next emulator, this isn't always already running and taking up the COM port. So just put that in your close script for all the other ones. Again, you don't need to do it for visual pinball though, because that's a slightly different system there. So that is the setup there. Go ahead and save that, and I think that's it actually. Now before I launch it, here's a couple, like if you go ahead and launch it and the DMD is not working, here's the first thing I would do to troubleshoot. So I'd go here, go to your C drive, go to visual pinball, go to vpin main, and we want to look for a file called dmddevice.ini. This, it turns out, for Pixelcade is a very important file, because this is where, remember when you went through that installer wizard, that's where the COM port gets set. So if I scroll down here, I go to the Pixelcade section. This is what my script did for you automatically, but in case something happened, or this is actually quite common, if you move Pixelcade to a different USB port, the COM port will change. So it's on 6 now. If I move it to another port, it maybe changes to 8 or some other number. Then you got to remember to go in here and change this as well. So that's an important troubleshooting trick. And so just make sure Pixelcade is enabled. You've got the right COM port. And then another little trick I can show you is there's actually a little command line test we can run. This is really good for troubleshooting purposes. So I'm going to go out to the command line, and let's change directories to visual pinball. Let's go to vpin main, and you can type, and I always forget it, so I'm going to go look at my browser here. I'm going to cheat. And so if you go to, again, to this PMD, go to pixelcade.org, download Pixelcade DMD, and scroll down, and in the main setup, there is a command line that we want to get. Let me just get that here. Here we go. We can go ahead and type that in. So it's DMD ext. We want to do a test. COM port, in this case it was 6, and then -D Pixelcade. Okay, so hit that, And then if you see this, if it says found Pixelcade on COM6 and you see those hardware IDs, basically you're good to go. So now Pixelcade is recognized, the software finds it, and then it's just a matter of going through the other steps that I showed you earlier. You should be fine. But anyway, that's always a good test to do to make sure your Pixelcade is working as it should for PinUp Popper. Another thing while I'm here, if you're familiar with Pixelcade on the arcade side, there's actually another program called pixelweb.exe, which is used for arcade mode. PinUp Popper works differently. It actually doesn't need pixelweb.exe, and that's why we didn't install the main Pixelcade software. And that reminds me, I forgot about the artwork. So let's go back there. So we've downloaded the artwork. So let's just go ahead and get into this. Let me open this. Okay, so here's all the Pixelcade artwork, but we only need certain artworks specifically for pinball for PinUp Popper. So I think the easiest thing to do is just open up another screen side by side. Let's do that here. Okay, so go to your PinUp system folder and then go to Pop Media. And this is where let's say Visual Pinball first. Let's do that one first. So Visual Pinball X and then DMD. This is where all your media is going to go. So then over here, let's go down to Visual Pinball. And we simply just want to copy all the files over. So I'm just going to literally cut and paste. And then paste. I've already have the files here, so I'm pretend that they weren't there. I'm just going to paste them in and I'll do an overwrite. In your installation, you might have some like example MP4 files. You can delete those because again, we're not going to use the MP4s. So I would, just to keep things clean, I would actually delete everything in these folders if there's already stuff there and then just simply copy over. Okay, so let that run. Actually, let's copy multiple things while we're going here. So then the next thing we can do is copy over, say, Pinball FX3. So same thing, go into FX3, click on DMD, and then over here, let's look for, okay, so I do want to replace. Let's look for Pinball FX3, which is going to be here. And exact same thing, just copy the files over. Now, the other thing I'll say is that everyone, different systems have, okay, you see here I got some MP4s, so I'm just going to nuke those. We don't need the MP4s, so let's just go ahead and delete all of those. Okay, I'll just hit delete. Okay, so same thing, I'm just going to hit copy and then paste. What I was saying was that depending on your emulators, where you got your ROMs from, etc., the file names may be different. So if you see a file that doesn't match, then you may just have to go in here and rename it. So I'll just pick an example. Let's say Rome was really, for yours, it was Rome space, something like this. I'm just making stuff up, right? So you would just need to go into your game manager, look for the actual file name, and then rename the artwork accordingly. So that does happen. The artwork I'm using is based on a particular build that I have set up myself, so it may be different for you. So just a heads up there. So let's do the same thing. Let's go to FX2. And again, you would do this for whatever systems that you have set up. So here's FX2. Let's do the same thing. Oops. Copy that over. Again, click on DMD. Hit copy. All right, and then last one, we'll do MAME. If you're using, if you happen to have arcade games on your PinUp Popper, because PinUp Popper can be a front end for arcade as well, specifically MAME, then go to the MAME folder. And this is going to take forever because there's a lot of MAME artwork. So just do the same thing, do copy, go here, and then just paste it all in. And then the artwork, we're slowly over time adding more artwork. You'll actually find for MAME, most of the artwork is, I wouldn't say every single, 4,000 game is covered, but quite a few are covered. And then for pinball, that's a newer thing. We're slowly adding more over time. So I'd say pinball is probably 60% or so of the tables at the time of this recording are covered, maybe a little higher, but we're quickly adding more artwork there. So that, I think, is all we need to do. So just to recap in terms of the steps we did, we downloaded the Pixelcade software. We downloaded the Pixelcade artwork. We went into PinUp setup. And remember, the first thing we did was we went here, we went to global config, went to script, we enabled the DMD. And so this setting is the DMD while you're browsing through the artwork. You haven't launched a game yet. You're just browsing through games on PinUp Popper. That's what this turns on for you. And then the other thing that we did was we went here, we went to emulators, and then we set up this, what I call the switching. So we went to the launch script, and this is where we tell PinUp Popper to launch the respective DMD plumbing depending on which emulator you're using, if it's FX2, FX3, etc. So that was the last thing that we did. Copied over the artwork, and that's pretty much it. So once you've done that, just do a reboot. And in theory, if you've set everything correctly, Pixelcade should be updating. If not, remember to do that troubleshooting step that we talked about. And then if you have any questions, of course, just drop a comment. As always, thanks for tuning in.